What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to our channel, Honest Hockey Takes. Today we will be talking about our season predictions of this upcoming NHL season. Today we will be focusing on the Atlantic Division.
So how this is going to work is each of us is going to take turns. We're going to rattle through. We're going to start at our 8th last place team in the division and work our way up to first for the top team in this division. And then at the end,
we're going to battle it out on all our differences because obviously we're not going to agree on the same things.
No, we never agree on anything. So
we're going to see how this plays out. This time I'll be starting first to share my rankings, and then Scott is going to share his rankings, and then we're going to come and battle later.
All right.
So let's go.
Take it away, Howin. Take it away.
All right, guys. So at number 8, I have the Montreal Canadiens. And this one's very obvious. I don't need to say too much about this team. This team is in an obvious rebuild. Their blue line is one of the worst in the league. I don't really they have David Savard, who I'm a fan of, but they lost too many back there. Very thin blue line. I don't like their goaltending. They're going to start with Jake Allen, and then their backup. I don't even like their backup. So, yeah, it's too bad because this team is very historical, has a lot of history to it. But in the end of the day, I just feel like this team is bottom in the standings. It's going to be exciting to see how Martin St. Louis is going to do, taking over this new club to open the season with this team. Cole Caulfield is going to be interesting to see how he does this year from the start because he had a very slow start last year. But other than that, I have Montreal at number 8. At number 7, I have the Buffalo Sabres. And this is another kind of like this is a very weird team, honestly, because I don't really know what they're doing. They're kind of like on a retool rebuild, but at the same time, they got a lot of aging players on their team, like Jeff Skinners and Alex Tuck, who are ready to compete now, but at the same time, they have a lot of young guys coming up, like Owen Powers, Rasmus Dahlin, JJ Peterka. They have a bunch of kids coming up. I thought the signing of Tage Thompson was very interesting. I thought it was a little bit of an overpayment from Buffalo's end. But at the same time, I just feel like Buffalo Sabres are in a very interesting position. They do not have a good goaltending. So it's going to be very interesting. That's why I have them at number 7. And there's not much to say about this team. At number 6, and this is where it's going to get surprising, my number 6 will be the Boston Bruins. And the Boston Bruins were a good team. Unfortunately, there's a lot of mystery with this team because now they do not have Brad Marchand to start the year. They do not have one of the best defensemen in Charlie McAvoy to start the year. And even without these players, I feel like their team is very, very thin. And now your first line consists of Pasternak, Hall, who I've seen Hall many, many times in Edmonton here, and this guy is very inconsistent to me. Like I like to describe him as a transporter. He's not really good at anything, but he's just good at skating the puck to me. So, and I know they brought back Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci, but the big question mark around David Krejci is that he's been away from the NHL for one whole year, and he's also a pretty old player. So I don't know how he's going to contribute to this team as well. You look at the players that have done that in the past, like Ilya Kovalchuk and Jaromir Jagr. When they came back to the league again at this age, they just weren't playing very good anymore, and they weren't that much of a X factor to their teams. So that's why I'm not so sure that Boston Bruins are gonna do that well this year, especially without Marchand to start the year, which is a big loss for them. At number 5, I have the Detroit Red Wings, and this is a very exciting team to watch. This team is a very good team. I love the ads that Steve Yzerman has made this offseason, especially with adding Ben Sherratt, David Perron, and Andrew Kopp, along with Kubalik, actually, for that third line winger. I think this team is a very deep team. And on top of that, more importantly, Dylan Larkin and Tyler Bertuzzi are on their contract year. So I expect nothing but a career year for them this year because they're playing for the contracts. And on top of that, I like what they did with the back end of adding Ville Husso. I fully expect this team to fully compete for a playoff spot this year. They're a very good team. And it's exciting that they're finally adding some proven good veteran players onto this team to go with the young guys like Moritz Seider and Lucas Raymond. And on top of that, I'd like to add that their right side defense is very, very strong with Lindstrom, Hronik, and Moritz Seider. It's a very exciting group. I have this team at 5 competing for a playoff spot. At number 4, I have the Florida Panthers. And I know a lot of people probably have this team in the top 2, but To me, the Florida Panthers lost too many good players in the offseason. They lost, especially with the blue line. I feel like the blue line's a little thin without, obviously with losing Mackenzie Weegar to Calgary in the trade, and also losing Ben Sherratt to the rival, division rival of Detroit Red Wings. So I feel like these two, now they have to move up Forsling to play a role that I'm not sure if he's capable of playing in a number 2 role now. So, and I feel like the rest of their defense core is very thin. I like their offense still. Their offense is expected to score a lot of goals still. In my mind, I feel like taking out Huberdeau out of that lineup is a big loss because he's one of the best playmaking wingers on the team last year. But they still have Sasha Barkov. Matthew Tkachuk, the guy they added, is very, very good. I've seen him many times here when in Edmonton, watching him in the Battle of Alberta up here. So Matthew Tkachuk is going to bring a lot of intangibles to the team. He's going to add some toughness to the team for sure, as we're to the top 6. I still like Bennett, Reinhardt, Duclair, Lundell. They still have a lot of good players up there. So that's why this team is still a playoff team in my mind. And on top of that, I expect Spencer Knight to start to take over and play almost 50% of the games this season. As I have good promise. I feel like this goalie is a very promising goalie. At number 3, I have the Ottawa Senators. The Ottawa Senators have made huge strides on paper to improve. And I really like what they did, especially with adding Claude Giroux, because Claude Giroux is a huge veteran player that I feel like this team badly needs, because all the players that they had before were good. And Brady Tkachuk, Drake Batherson, Tim Stützle, and Josh Norris. All these kids are good, but they're really young, and they need that leadership. They need that leader that can help them guide the way to start winning some very important games coming up here. So I feel like Claude Giroux is a huge add for them. He's going to be huge, and also with the add of Alexander DeBrincat, I feel like him playing with Stützle full time is going to be huge for Stützle's production. I feel like he's going to at least have 70 to 80 points this season playing with those guys full time. On top of that, I really like their top 9, especially even their third line of Matthew Joseph, Formanton, and it's going to be very interesting to see how this team does down the stretch here. The only weakness I have with them is definitely their defense. I'm not sold on their defense yet, but they do have a lot of underrated defense. I like Artem Sub, who can hit, who can box people out. I like, obviously, you have Thomas Chabot, and I'm excited to see Jake Sanderson. And on top of that, I like their goalie with Cam Talbot, and I feel a lot stronger with Cam Talbot over Matt Murray. At number 2, I have the Toronto Maple Leafs. Toronto is a good team, but the problem is I'm not sold. Their team is pretty much the same as last year, with the exception of they have, to me, a downgrade in goaltending. I just feel like Matt Murray and Samsonov is a very iffy goalie tandem, and I feel like a lot of people will agree with me on this. We're not so sure on what we're going to get from this tandem. Matt Murray is good when he's fully healthy, but at the same time, he's had a lot of issues to try and stay healthy for the last couple of years. So as a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, I'll be a little bit worried about that. And then you will have to rely on Samsonov to be the starter. And obviously, I have no doubts that they're going to score a lot of goals, especially with Austin Matthews, who's one of the best centers in the game today and one of the best goal scorers in the game. He's going to score a ton of goals, 50, 60 goals. And then you got one of the best playmaking wingers in Mitch Marner. So I have no problem with their offense. Their defense is a little iffy, but I think they're still. But with Mark Giordano signing that $800,000 contract, I feel like it's really going to help this team to at least be competitive in the blue line there. And at number 1, I'm going to have the Tampa Bay Lightning. The reigning not the Stanley Cup champion, but they have been to the Cup Finals 3 years in a row. This team is just too good. I feel like the team is still good all around. They still got Victor Hedman on the team, a franchise-level defenseman. On top of that, when I watched the playoffs last season, I really felt like Sergachev was starting to come on his own, finally coming into his own and trying to take more risks and shoot the puck more. And if he can continue to do that, I feel like this team can make some great strides. They retain most of their team. I don't think they've let anyone significant go other than Andre Palat. But I feel like in the end of the day, I feel like Ross Colton or Nick Paul has to be ready to step up into that role, in the top 6 role there. But at the same time, in the end of the day, I feel like this coach is one of the best coaches in the league, in John Cooper. He's adapted so many times into winning games and to winning very important games. I feel like they have the best goalie in the world in Andrei Vasilevsky, and there's not very little debate about that. And I just feel like this team is can be super competitive again in another year, and we'll see how it goes. But I have Tampa Bay Lightning at number 1. So now I'm going to let Scott do his rankings.
All right, everybody. I'm going to give you my breakdown now after Howin's list, which, yeah, that was something. I'm going to start off with number 8. I actually can agree with this one. I did have the Montreal Canadiens. Now, here's the thing. This team made some pretty good additions in my mind, and I think that their GM, Kent Hughes, has done a really good job with this team, but it's clear that they're still in a rebuilding path, and it's going to take time for development for these new young kids. Caulfield kind of showed that at the end of the year, he could actually score some goals after going 1 goal in the first 34 games. But honestly, the depth of this scoring is not great. And players like Yuri Slafkovsky, who they drafted first overall, will take time to actually develop into what he's supposed to be, which is a strong power forward that can score maybe 30 goals and get you 65, 70 points down the line. They named Nick Suzuki captain, which I truly love because as much as I'm not a big Habs fan, I love that kid. That kid is a leader, and he is just one of my favorite players out there. So I'm perfectly okay with that choice by the Montreal Canadiens. Their defense and goaltending is mainly the reason that I actually have them lower than this team I have next at 7. It just is so lackluster, and replacing Carey Price is going to show to be quite the challenge over the next couple of years. And just barely higher than the Montreal Canadiens, coming in at number 7, I have the Buffalo Sabres. The Buffalo Sabres, I really like some of the stuff they've been working on, especially this draft. When they went out and drafted Noah Ostlund and Matt Savoie this draft, I was very, very happy. I was like, these are 2 guys that I had in my top 10 for this year's draft, and I thought they absolutely crushed it. Unfortunately for them, these aren't players who are going to be able to jump in for this season right away. And I don't think the current roster they have coming into the 2022-2023 season is going to be able to compete with the likes of some of these stronger teams in the Atlantic Division. Their goaltending is far from great. Starting Eric Comrie is going to be quite the liability, I think. He's really never been a true starter in this league. And the one thing that actually got me taking this team over Montreal for 7th is that I really prefer their defense. Owen Power, playing at the end of last year and Michigan for the first half of the year, he looked amazing. He looks to be a true Rookie of the Year candidate. And paired with Rasmus Dahlin, that could be quite a good pair. Like, we're talking they could log 27, 28 minutes a night and put up some good offensive numbers while being respectful in their own zone. So I kind of look forward to seeing that. That's one highlight, I think, for Buffalo. Up front, on their offense, I don't really love their offense at all. I gotta be honest, this is a pretty weak offense to me compared to a lot of teams, like probably bottom 5, honestly, in the league. But I do like a couple things. I am excited to see Jack Quinn this year, actually, in his first full season after getting hurt last year. He projects to be quite a good goal scorer. I could see him actually having a chance as a rookie at 25 goals, and that would really add to their second line, considering really last year the only offense they got came from the Tage Thompson line. So we look forward to seeing that, and hopefully he's able to make it work, because not a lot of young kids are able to make it work in Buffalo. All right, coming in at number 6, I got the Detroit Red Wings. I know a lot of people will flock to this team and think that they're going to be right in the playoffs because Stevie Y went out and had honestly quite an amazing offseason. They added so many players in free agency, whether it was on the defense with Ben Sherratt or up front with Andrew Kopp and David Perron. They definitely added a lot more grit to this line, and their depth is improved greatly. They have 3 scoring lines, and honestly, their team as a whole is a lot more respectable. And now in net, having a tandem of Ville Husso and Nedeljkovic, I think that will definitely improve their spot in the standings this year. Unfortunately, I just think there's too many other teams in this division that have also improved or are still holding on at a slightly higher level. I don't really feel that this team has a lot of game-breaking talent. Lucas Raymond, for me, is honestly the closest one. Obviously, Moritz Seider is solid on the back end. But for someone to actually take over a game and carry a team on their back, I don't think they have that right now. And for that reason, I have to keep them here at number 6. And coming in at number 5, which is a bit of a drop-off for this team, considering they've pretty much been a perennial playoff team for a long, long time. Pretty much as long as I can remember. And that is the Boston Bruins. I think this team is going to have their first major slip-up in a while. It doesn't help that they're going to be without arguably two of their best players, if not their two best players, in Marchand and McAvoy for a couple months minimum, as well as the fact that their team is just old. Like, this team is stale. They broke 100 points last year, but I felt like almost everything went right for that, and I don't think that's going to happen again. Not with the teams improving. The parity in this division has gotten so much tighter, and I think wins are going to be harder to scrap for. And I don't think that their offense is going to be able to keep up with some of these other teams ahead of them on this list. Really, their defense is going to be actually probably suffering even more than that, though, because without Charlie and Matt Grzelcyk for some time, that is a lot of minutes that they have to find someone to munch up. And I just don't think that that's going to be able to happen for them. And coming in at number 4, I have the Ottawa Senators. Now, I know a lot of the time, teams will go out in free agency, spend a bunch of money, and add all these fantastic players. And when the product on the ice is realized, it's nothing what they had hoped. And you know what? I don't think this is the case with Ottawa. I think this is the real deal. By adding Giroux and adding DeBrincat to this roster, which was already kind of like building into something good, albeit very slowly, and fans probably getting impatient with it, but I think that's the exact type of fit that they need for this team. Giroux is like a born leader, and he's shown it with Philadelphia throughout the years. He's got that playoff experience, he's got that grit, tenacity, and he just is going to be so good for these young players, like the Brady Tkachuk's and the Tim Stützles of this team. And then DeBrincat. They now have a second bona fide shooting goal scorer, lethal, kind of like Josh Norris, but honestly better. And this team's top 6 looks for real. I can't really see like one's a weak spot in that. When you have like Batherson is like your worst player in your top 6, you're probably doing something all right. As well as I feel like this is the year Tim Stützle really breaks out. He's had a couple okay years so far, and people will probably be like, oh, he's 3rd overall, but he hasn't been putting up like crazy stats. This is the year I think we're going to really see it from Tim Stützle. I wouldn't be surprised if he's just under a point per game this year. And in net, adding Cam Talbot from Minnesota. This guy is very, very driven, I think, right now. He basically got forced out by the team adding Marc-Andre Fleury and cutting his games back to basically a backup role. And now I think he wants to show the world that he's still got it and he is still a top 10, top 15 goalie. So I look forward to seeing a great season from him. And at number 3, falling a little bit from last year, but still being a playoff team, I have the Florida Panthers. I think this team definitely had an interesting offseason, to say the least. That big, massive trade, I think, threw everyone for a loop. I don't think anyone thought that Huberdeau was going to be out of town come this season, as well as Mackenzie Weegar. Like, that's pretty crazy to imagine, especially looking at their success last year as a team and Huberdeau being tied 2nd in NHL scoring. But you know what? I got a funny feeling that this will work for the better when it comes to the playoffs. But since this is only a regular season video, I have them in 3rd instead of 1st like last year, because I just don't think they'll be able to score at that same rate. Last year, Florida basically was scoring at an insane rate. This team was like the best scoring team in like over 10 years, and I just don't think they'll be able to repeat that. But I think they kept enough of the core together, having Barkov still there, Verhaeghe and some of these other guys, having Ekblad on the back end to kind of keep it going, as well as very underrated Gustav Forsling, who you never really hear anyone talk about, but he had a quietly good season, both defensively and offensively. And I think this is the year we're finally going to see a bit more of an emergence of Spencer Knight, who was supposed to be top-tier talent, and he kind of got off to a really sluggish start last year, but I think this is the year you're going to see him really push Bobrovsky for that number 1 spot. All right, now at number 2, I have the Tampa Bay Lightning. I know, this team has been so good that they've gone to 3 straight Stanley Cups, winning 2 of 3, just barely losing out last year to a super stacked Colorado team. But I think that they're not going to be able to be first in the regular season because they've lost some key players to this team. Arguably, I would say they lost their most underrated forward and their most underrated defenseman. Losing Ryan McDonough, especially, I think, is going to hurt this team. This guy has been there for so long, logging off so many minutes, playing 21, 22 minutes a night. And then up front, losing Andre Palat, who's basically been there since he was drafted. So I just don't think that they're going to have the depth to compete for first this year, at least not in the regular season. I mean, come the playoffs, until proven otherwise, Tampa's the Kings. But for a full 82-game season with their health issues, I just don't think they're going to have what it takes to be first this year. They've just suffered too much loss, in my opinion, mainly just because of salary cap problems. And at number 1, I have everyone's most favorite team to hate, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, I know this is quite controversial, but after Toronto set their franchise record last year in points for a regular season, I mean, keep in mind, guys, this is the regular season. I'm not saying this team's going to win the Stanley Cup or anything crazy. That would make me sound absolutely mentally insane. But I do have them finishing first atop the Atlantic this year. I think this team has not really lost enough to knock them down from last year, and all their young players are coming into that perfect age of their prime. Having a top line with Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, and Bunting last year just really stepping up and being a Rookie of the Year candidate. I know, it's crazy. 26 years old, Rookie of the Year candidate. But overall, that line just was, in my opinion, the best line in hockey, straight up. I just couldn't see a line that was more dominant. And I think the combination of that and then having a second line with Tavares and Nylander, it's too much offense. And honestly, the regular season ends up being a lot about offense most of the time, as we saw last year with Florida and how they scored all those goals and they won the President's Trophy. So I wouldn't be surprised, even with their defense being criminally underrated, in my opinion, because a lot of people give Toronto a lot of slack for having a terrible defense. But if you actually look at the numbers in the last couple of years, their defense hasn't really been that bad. I mean, sure, they're not a Tampa Bay Lightning defense or anything like that, but this team has a respectable defense and enough to get it done to finish first in this division. And the other knock I always get told is that what are they going to do without Jack Campbell having a duo of Samsonov and Murray? Well, you know what? I really don't think those guys are going to struggle as much as other people do. I can't tell you which one's going to end up starting because honestly, they could both play 41 games, but I think there'll be more than enough to get this team wins, at least for the regular season. Okay, wow. You know what? Not as crazy as I thought. I didn't think we'd be that close, actually. I didn't think we'd have no teams separated by more than one spot. This is kind of good for you. You're not as insane as you used to be.
No, I think I thought in this division, I thought that it was pretty clear who the top 4 is, and it's also pretty clear who are ones out.
So we actually ended up having the exact same 4 teams in the playoffs, basically.
Yep.
Okay, assuming that there's one wild card from each division, that is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of hated on Boston a bit. I know they got worse, but you really have them falling that hard, hey? That even Detroit's over them?
Yeah, because one of the big questions I have, well, number 1 is they're not going to have Marchand and McAvoy to start the year, and we don't know how long they're going to be out for. And that's huge. That's huge. And if you look at it too, they added Krejci back, but the problem with Krejci is that he's an older player now, and they added him when he was away from the NHL for 1 whole year. So that I have question marks around that, whether he can still perform even how he used to before he left. But at the same time, the reason why I have Detroit higher is mainly because all the stuff that they added. Yeah, sure, like we don't know, right now it's just on paper, we don't know how the chemistry is going to be like. But at the same time, I feel like Dylan Larkin and Tyler Bertuzzi, these 2 players in particular, these 2 players are playing for their contracts. So I really feel like they're going to bring probably one of the best seasons this upcoming season.
But this is also Bergeron's swan song season.
You
don't think he's going to give it his all last season? At least keep it respectable?
He definitely will. I think he will, but the problem is I just feel like there's not enough fire. I like their goalie, but the thing is I just don't feel like there's enough firepower on that team to...
See, I don't think this team's going to be amazing by any means, but I do think they're still going to have the effort there for Bergeron in his last year.
Absolutely.
And I don't think Krejci's going to fall off as much. Like, he will fall off, but because he's old as hell and he's been around forever. But also, as you said, he stepped away. I think he's still going to be at least a 45-point player. So at least he's going to be serviceable for that team as like a second, third line center.
Yeah. I mean, also, like, I like Craig Smith. I think he's okay for a third line winger as well. So... they have options. I don't like Taylor Hall.
Still got Pasta.
They do have Pasta.
Taylor Hall, I mean, I'm not a Taylor Hall guy either, but I will say, I mean, at least you know he's still going to be like 65-point player at worst.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, I don't think this team's... I think they're going to falter, but I don't think they're going to fall enough to be, say, like 20 points lower than last year.
Right, but you look at the players that Detroit added. Like that's insane. How many players they added to like it's almost like half a team they added.
I noticed a lot of your list.
Yeah.
You were quite reactionary to that free agency market. I noticed how like you had Ottawa jump from what, like 7th all the way up to 3rd in that division. And now you have Detroit jumping up ahead of Boston. So I'm noticing you're making quite a big free agency adjustment here.
Well, to be honest, with all that moves, Ottawa is going to be a playoff team in my mind.
Well, I agree. No, I think Ottawa's...
But the reason...
I don't think they both can be... Like, I don't think they're both going to jump up at the same time that much. I think the division parity will tighten, but I really don't think they're going to both jump up drastically in the standings.
What was Detroit at last year? 7th?
Yeah, they were 7th.
So I have them at 5. Yeah.
But yeah. But like, you know what I mean? Like, if Ottawa's already making that jump, it seems like a little unlikely, right?
I feel like at some point Boston's gonna have to fall. I feel like this is the year.
Oh yeah, no, they're gonna fall. Well, this would be a fall. I mean, last year they broke 100 points. Like they were a really good team.
Yeah.
But they kind of showed signs that they were already kind of getting closer to falling down, right?
And the big one is they don't have Marchand and McAvoy to start the season.
Yeah, they're both missing like 2 months, I think.
Yeah,
so I mean, like
huge.
they're still gonna get like 60 games in though.
Yeah.
So say they start bad. Like honestly, they will. I think they will start bad. Say they're 500 for the first like 2 months. Those guys come back. I mean, they're going to be a couple games above 500 by the end of the season. Do you think Detroit's over 500 next year as a team in this league?
I hope so. The thing is, again, like this is projection. I'm projecting that I think that this team will because they. On paper, they look good, but a lot of times on paper doesn't always translate.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. Is I don't think that like on paper Detroit looks amazing. They have a really good team now.
Where I will agree with you with Boston still having it is that they have that chemistry there.
Yeah, so much chemistry, perfection line.
It's like a proven chemistry versus like
the unknown.
Detroit
basically
has a lot
you have an unknown, right? Whereas you kind of know what you're going to get.
But the thing is with Detroit, they just added so many players, and then on top of that, you added like you think about like a 1 year extra, like 1 year better, like 1 year older of Lucas Raymond, 1 year older of Mertz.
Oh yeah, no, they definitely have some good young kids.
Lindstrom is a very good player. I'm excited to see that Edvinson guy. I believe he's going to have a full-time spot on the bottom six.
What's your thoughts on a guy like Larkin though? Do you think that he can carry a team though, or do you think he's just like kind of just a first line guy?
He's a first line guy. Yeah, he's not a franchise.
That's what I mean. He's not going to be like a guy like Pastor, Bergeron, or even Marchand.
But the thing is, but the thing is, he is playing for a contract, and I think he's going to do everything he can this upcoming season to try to maximize his new contract here. So.
Players do play better for their contract.
That's why I feel like, and also Tyler Bertuzzi is in the same spot, so I feel like both of them are going to play hard.
I kind of feel like Tyler Bertuzzi is not going to be on this team halfway through this year. I kind of feel like he's probably going to get traded at some point here. I don't think he's going to stick around for the full year with the way that they're rebuilding.
Yeah, I don't know.
They have a lot of other guys that are like kind of itching for those spots.
But if you also look at it, they added Perron, they added Andrew Kopp. These are two guys.
I love the Perron ad.
Right,
the Perron ad's really good.
Both Perron and Andrew Kopp went deep in the playoffs last year, so these guys know what it takes to win.
Perron has so much experience, man. Like he's
also,
so solid.
Ben Sherratt, even though they were knocked out in the second round there in a sweep, he has he has some playoff experience last year as well. So there's 3 guys coming in that were in the playoffs last year. Ville Husso as well.
No, they're definitely going to be better. There's no doubt in my mind this team's going to be better. They honestly could go up like somewhere between 8 to 10 points, but I just don't think they're going to pass Boston yet. Maybe next year. Actually, almost surely next year when Bergeron retires in that. But I think for this year, I'm going to stick with Boston there.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, fair. Yeah.
What's your thing against Florida, man? This team literally won the President's Trophy. You think they're going to finish 4th?
Yeah, have you seen that blue line?
Yeah, but really, what actually changed? They lost Uyghur? That's it?
They lost Uyghur. They also lost Ben Sherratt.
Yeah, Sherratt, but they only had him for a little bit this season.
Still,
he wasn't there the whole year. He's a trade deadline guy.
Yes, but at the same time is also Ekblad had a really good season last year.
He did. He finally broke out.
And I don't know if he can replicate that season.
Dude, he's a first overall pick.
He is, but at the same time, he's always been injured.
Yeah, okay, I can't argue that. He's always injured. But when he's on the ice, he is actually pretty elite now.
He is, but that same could be said about Dougie Hamilton last year. Look at him gone for such a big portion,
I don't know if I'd quite compare that.
No, but like it's still a big impact, right? Not having that
you want to have your number one guy. I mean, if you told me Ekblad's going to be hurt for the entire 82-game season, I'm probably not going to have Florida high.
Even Ekblad himself said that his favorite partner to ever play with was Mackenzie Weegar. So now that you take Mackenzie Weegar out...
Weegar was amazing.
You take Mackenzie Weegar out, now he has to find new chemistry with his new defensive partner now.
Yeah. No.
So he'll have to learn everything. I know they added Matthew Tkachuk, but they also lost Jonathan Huberdeau. Like that's a big loss in my mind too.
The Kachuk ad, it gives them a lot more grit, though. I mean,
It
sure,
does.
they lose a lot of like playmaking ability in Huberdeau, but Kachuk can score. He can be very physical. He's going to be great for their power play, I think. Which, honestly, watching that last time they played against Tampa, their power play looked awful. So it actually could be a good thing.
Yeah, because the team, I felt like watching the playoffs last year against Tampa, they just didn't have any character. They didn't have
they needed something. They couldn't run that team again because they weren't going to win playoffs.
I felt like they played very passive. So it's nice to have a player that can just get into your face and kind of hit, get in your head a little bit. They need a player like that.
So how far did you, if you were to just guess point-wise, just random guess, how many would you say that Ottawa's going to edge out Florida by this year for a third versus
very
fourth?
slim. Very slim.
You think it's going to be tight? Like very close?
Very close. Like,
all right.
very, very close. Yeah.
All right, then I guess I won't beat you too much for that. As I said, none of our picks
and even Tampa and Toronto is also going to be very, very close, even though we have.
Oh, I agree with that. No, I agree. I have Toronto there,
yeah.
But I do think it's going to be within like 4 points.
Yeah, and because in the end of the day, like Tampa, a lot of times they don't like to play for number one anymore. I noticed that with them.
Well, because when they do, I mean, they lose to Columbus in 4.
Exactly.
So, I mean,
so that's why
it's been working for them.
I feel like sometimes they do purposely not get first.
Like there's some reason they play better when they don't.
Yeah, because they don't have the pressure, right, in the playoffs. So, we're not.
And then
number
I guess
one.
for Toronto, it doesn't matter where they finish, right?
Look at this past season, number 3. They were number 3 in their division.
Yeah, no, I know.
And they went all the way to the finals.
It doesn't matter where they finish. They're not afraid to play anybody.
Yeah, but the thing is, I feel like when they're number 1, they have that pressure now. They're not. They're the best team. They're the best team. That's why they lost to Columbus.
Realistically, though, what are the odds that Stamkos, Kucherov, and Point all make it through the season and play 80-plus games?
Very little.
It's like not happening.
Not
right?
happening.
Like one of them's gone at least, maybe two, two.
Yep.
And now they don't have the depth anymore as much. Honestly, losing Palat, like that guy showed in the playoffs what he means to that team. That is a big loss.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because this last season was probably the first season in a while where I see Palat really came out and just went flying.
Oh, he was flying.
But
he was all over.
in the other years, with the years they won Stanley Cup, he was still a big part of it, but he wasn't the major part of it.
He was like a good secondary option to a good bunch of stars.
Yeah, so I feel like they've done it before where I feel like they can find a player. Hopefully Ross Colton can step up for them. Nick Paul, these guys.
When they were running over teams in the last couple of years, though, they had McDonough and Ruda, and they had like a good, solid 6 defensemen.
Yeah,
they don't have those two guys.
McDonough
anymore.
is a massive, massive loss.
I cannot
even fathom about that. Like he is a big
like
loss.
Obviously they're still a playoff team. We're not arguing that here at all.
Yeah.
But losing McDonough is gonna hurt.
Huge. He blocks so many shots.
Yeah, you could see Vassie's numbers could go down now because he doesn't have the same quality of defenseman in front of him.
Yeah.
It could be interesting. I don't know. I'm not saying it's impossible for them to be first.
Yeah.
But I think this is the year they take a bit of a step backwards.
Yeah, but the problem I have with Toronto is, they have a lot of the same team as last year.
They really do, and honestly, they're a great regular season team.
They lost 2 players. They lost Dermott, right, Travis Dermott.
Yeah,
and they lost Mikheyev both to Vancouver.
Yeah,
for some reason. But,
and you know what? That team's been cycling through third liners and fourth liners like crazy for the last.
Oh, they
4
also
years.
lost Andre Kache. Apparently, you're not a fan of him, but they lost him.
That's goodbye.
But their biggest difference is the goalie. Jack Campbell at times didn't play very good last season.
He was inconsistent.
Yeah, very inconsistent, but at the same time,
I don't hate Sammy. I really don't hate Sammy. And Murray's won 2 Stanley Cups. It's not like he doesn't have experience.
I've seen Matt Murray when he was playing Toronto. In Ottawa last season. There was a stretch where that he played amazing.
Yeah, he looked so much better last year.
But the problem is injuries.
Oh yeah, no. Which is why I think that they're going to end up splitting games. It's not necessarily because their starters are equal. It's because Murray's probably going to miss like 20 games at a time.
Let me ask you this then: why did Samsonov play so poor last year? Like,
I think that's a bit of an inside thing with Kuznetsov and like Orlov. Something about those guys did not mesh together when they were all there. The 3 Russian players, they were breaking rules. Sammy was suspended by the team for COVID protocol breaches. I don't think that it was good for him to be around Kuznetsov, honestly. I think that's a big part of it. I think he'll be way better in Toronto than he was in Washington.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to see.
Oh, I'm excited so much for these top teams because it honestly could go anyway. It could be any of those top 4 teams, honestly.
Yeah, so this is a very interesting video. I feel like we actually agree.
Yeah, this is really weird. This will not happen, I don't think, very often. We really don't agree on a whole lot.
Well, we say that now. Next video we do, we apparently agree on most of the stuff too. You never know!
I highly doubt it. I don't know with you. You're kind of wild, so.
But anyways, I think that does it for this video. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you like this video, and we'll see you in the next video.